Did you know that Constantinople, once the most powerful city in the Christian world, was devastated not by armies, but by the invisible plague of Justinian? At its peak, it claimed up to 10,000 lives a day. This microscopic killer, carried by fleas on rats, weakened the Byzantine Empire more than any rival. It's a stark reminder. The most powerful forces in history are often invisible. Plagues have built and demolished empires, redrawn maps and changed the course of humanity, often more than any king or conqueror. We celebrate battles and leaders, but often overlook the profound influence of infectious diseases. Plagues aren't just tragic footnotes, they're central characters in our story, driving social, political, and economic upheaval. When a plague sweeps through, it doesn't just kill, it disrupts trade, causes labor shortages, and shakes political stability. In the aftermath, new ideas and social structures emerge, shifting the balance of power and setting the stage for new chapters in history. Think of history as a river. Wars and treaties are the boats, but plagues are the unseen currents that can change the river's course entirely. From the fall of Athens to today's challenges, plagues have been a constant, humbling force shaping our destiny. They remind us of our fragile place in the natural world. How can something as small as a virus change an entire society? By disrupting the basic routines that hold civilization together. When plague strikes, farmers can't harvest, merchants stop trading, and soldiers can't defend borders, society unravels. This chaos forces innovation. Labor shortages mean surviving workers can demand better wages and conditions, challenging old hierarchies. Sickness becomes an engine for social change, rewriting the rules of power and wealth. Fear of contagion leads to new practices like quarantine and improved sanitation, early forms of public health that often become permanent. Plagues also change how people think, forcing them to question leaders, doctors, and even their gods. When traditional institutions fail, faith in them can erode, paving the way for new scientific ideas and rational approaches. The trauma of pandemics shakes civilizations, but also clears ground for new growth. In the end, plagues don't just kill, they transform, forcing societies to adapt or perish. The rules of life, work, and belief are rewritten in the shadow of disease. And from that upheaval, new worlds are born. The Black Death in the 14th century was more than a disease. It was an apocalypse for medieval Europe. Arriving from Asia, the plague killed up to half of Europe's population in just a few years. Entire villages vanished, cities became ghost towns. The social and economic consequences were immediate. Feudalism crumbled as labor shortages gave peasants new bargaining power. Survivors demanded higher wages and better conditions, and many left rural manors for cities, forever changing the relationship between rulers and commoners. The psychological impact was just as profound. The church, unable to explain or stop the plague, lost authority, leading to both crises of faith and new forms of piety. The devastation cleared the way for a new world, weakened old structures, greater social mobility, and the rise of new technologies. Wealth was redistributed as survivors inherited property, creating new economic opportunities. The Black Death was a violent reset, shaking the foundations of the medieval world and paving the way for the Renaissance and the modern age. It's a stark example of how disease can transform society at every level. The world that emerged was fundamentally different, more open, more dynamic, and ready for change. Plagues don't just end eras, they launch new ones. The Black Death's legacy is a Europe forever changed. Sometimes catastrophe is the mother of reinvention. When Europeans arrived in the Americas, they brought invisible invaders, smallpox, measles, and influenza. Indigenous peoples, isolated for millennia, had no immunity. The result was the Great Dying. Up to 90% of the population lost within a century. Smallpox devastated the Aztec and Inca empires, killing leaders and shattering societies. The massive death toll created a power vacuum, making conquest far easier for Europeans. Disease didn't just kill, it broke down social structures, agriculture, and faith, leaving survivors in crisis. Many believed their gods had abandoned them, further weakening resistance. The plagues acted as the advance guard of conquest, permanently altering the human and ecological landscape. Vast areas returned to forest, even affecting the global climate. The collision of disease environments rewrote the history of two continents, more decisively than any battle. In 1918, as World War I ended, a new enemy emerged: The Spanish flu. This pandemic infected a third of the world and killed up to 100 million, more than the war itself. Unlike most flus, it struck healthy adults hardest, overwhelming even the most advanced societies. Cities closed schools, theaters, and churches, mandated masks and urged hygiene, measures that feel familiar today. Hospitals overflowed and healthcare systems buckled under the strain. The disaster spurred investment in epidemiology and the creation of national and international health organizations. The trauma of 1918 laid the groundwork for the World Health Organization and modern public health infrastructure. The Spanish flu showed that in a connected world, disease anywhere can become a crisis everywhere. It's a cautionary tale. Pandemics are not relics of the past, but a constant threat in our global age. Our response to future plagues depends on the lessons we learned then. Cities have always been magnets for disease, but also for innovation. Epidemics forced urban dwellers to rethink how they lived, leading to breakthroughs in sanitation and public health. The cholera outbreaks of the 19th century, and John Snow's discovery of contaminated water, revolutionized city infrastructure. Massive investments in sewers, clean water and sanitation transformed urban life. Fear of disease also shaped city design. Wider streets, public parks and better ventilation became priorities. The grand boulevards of Paris and green spaces in cities worldwide were born from the desire to fight sickness. Modern pandemics continue to reshape our cities, highlighting the need for open spaces and resilient infrastructure. From Roman aqueducts to today's urban planning, the fight against disease has always driven city innovation. Our cities are, in many ways, monuments to the lessons of past plagues. Plagues don't just change cities and empires, they reach into our homes and beliefs. Disease can tear families apart, forcing impossible choices between care and survival, leaving deep scars and mistrust. High mortality disrupts marriage, inheritance and family life, sometimes giving women new roles and independence. Communities marry younger and have more children to recover, altering family rhythms for generations. Spiritually, plagues test faith. When prayers go unanswered, religious institutions can lose authority, as seen during the Black Death. Yet crisis can also intensify belief or spark new religious movements and superstitions. Plagues reshape the spiritual landscape, eroding old beliefs and creating space for new ideas. In the shadow of disease, both family and faith are forever changed. The history of plagues teaches us hard-won lessons. First, we are all connected. Disease knows no borders or classes, making global cooperation essential. Public health interventions like quarantine, sanitation, and vaccination are our best defenses. Societies that invest in science and trust public health are more resilient. The scientific revolution, especially germ theory, transformed our ability to fight disease. Plagues also expose and magnify social inequalities. The poorest always suffer most. A healthy society is only as strong as its most vulnerable members. Building justice and equity isn't just moral, it's vital for survival. The suffering of the past is a guide for a healthier, fairer future. The story of plagues isn't over. It's an ongoing narrative we all share. Invisible microbes can still topple societies even in our high-tech world. Our interconnectedness brings new vulnerabilities but also new opportunities to learn and adapt. Plagues have forced societies to innovate, rebuild and rethink everything from cities to families. The lessons of the past, cooperation, science, public health and equity, are our inheritance. Ignoring them leaves us vulnerable. Learning from them builds resilience. The story of plagues is a story about humanity, our fears, courage and capacity for change. Stay curious, keep learning, and help build a healthier future for all.